welcome back. I'm sorry if the audio of this does not sound great. I am walking over a bridge that goes sort of through Manayunk and also through Lower Marion. Very nice. I do this every day. I either walk or run on this bridge or a bit of both. But as you can imagine, it is a little windy and it does go over a highway. So it may not have the best audio quality, and I apologize, but it is how it is. I realize I haven't recorded anything in a while, and so I wanted to at least talk about something, even if it's not going to sound bad or not going to sound good, and even if I don't have data in front of me. I just wanted to get some thoughts out, especially with the NBA Finals going on. So I recently had a conversation with my father and my father had been watching the series. I have not watched the series that closely, as there's not a Philly team in it, and as the Phillies at a time have had games overlap with the finals, I've chosen to watch my team over, the Knicks, who have been winning. And of course, one of the main catalysts of the Knicks winning has been Karl-Anthony Towns. So my father brought up how Karl-Anthony Towns has been doing a great job defending Victor Wembanyama, and how this is so very unusual because Karl-Anthony Towns is known as a bad defender. And normally, this would be the end of the story. However, I decided to chime in and say, hey, what if Cat being a bad defender was actually helping him? So here's how I sort of view it. And this could obviously make no sense to people, but this is just how I view it right now. So you have a player in Karl-Anthony Towns who is more of a skillful big than a physical big. He does have some of the physical attributes. He is, 7 feet tall. Weight-wise is pretty normal. But in terms of play style, he is not super aggressive. He is not always super physical. And usually when he is, it's to his own detriment. And this is sort of where guarding Victor Wembanyama, I think, has actually been good for him, because instead of guarding someone like Joel Embiid, who can really get into his chest and or make him foul in different ways, you have Victor Wembanyama, who is skillful like him, but also, for the first time, I think, I imagine a lot of his career, might actually be one of the few big-time centers who are also weaker than him. So, going through for Karl-Anthony Towns and why this is beneficial for him more than anyone, we have seen in the past, whether it was for the Timberwolves or even in more recent years, teams have gone after Cat when they are on offense because Cat is a bad defender. He's either a little too slow for sort of the skillful power forwards like Anthony Davis, or he's a little too weak for stronger centers, or at least more aggressive centers in Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. And the way they do that, of course, is Cat, like anyone, gets his hands up as they should, and then they drive into his chest, which causes him to bring those arms down. That swipe motion, even if he doesn't hit anyone, even if it doesn't do anything, is very easy to call for a foul. And I think Wemby, at his weight and his height, is unable to do the same thing. And so, with Cat putting his arms up, this is a guess again. By all means, comment down below if this isn't what you're seeing. I'd love to hear it. Again, I haven't really been watching the series as much, but this is my guess on why he's having sort of a good time defending Wemby, is that Wemby, either by being too tall or not strong enough, isn't really getting into the chest of Karl-Anthony Towns. And so Cat doesn't swipe down. On top of that, I think Coach Mike Brown has done a very good job in sort of getting Karl Anthony Towns behind the idea of, hey, just do what you have to do. Let's say, for a good defender, someone like Rudy Gobert, someone like Joel Embiid, or someone who just blocks shots like Hassan Whiteside, you'd have a problem of telling them, don't overextend, don't do this, because in their minds, the most effective thing they can do is block shots. But Cat isn't like that, because Cat's not a good defender, and he knows that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Brown said, hey, keep your hands up, keep your body sound, and you'll do fine. And Cat said, okay, I'll do that. I'll just do that. Because again, bad defender, he knows overextending is not going to work. Doing some of the other things aren't going to work because Wemby's too tall, or Wemby can, just reach through him in different ways. And so being the bad defender he is, he's just going to take what he can get. And so he said, okay, I'm going to do what coach says, keep my arms up, keep, my core sound, and just make him take tough shots. And because he's on the quicker end, he can actually contest in the face, but still contest Wembanyama. And so once that started and it worked, Cat probably thought, okay, well, here we go. This thing worked. There's no reason to go to anything else. There's no reason to say, hey, now I'm going to go block a shot, or hey, I'm going to, push him around a little bit, because he doesn't need to. Isaiah Hartenstein, good example of the other side of this, where he is stronger, but he would get himself into foul trouble. Well, he would have, but he fouled Wemby a lot and would get himself into bad situations and in trouble because he would sort of overextend, knowing how much of an advantage of strength that he has. While at the same time, if he was guarding Jokic or Embiid, he's better at keeping his positioning well, because he knows this overextension isn't going to work against those guys. And so you sort of see this cycle. I was thinking about it earlier, this cycle of defending, where some guys are better at defending certain types of builds, even if they're not necessarily good defenders. Like, a lot of good defenders who you like to have on your teams are guys who are very quick, very agile, gets around screens, keeps the guy in front. And that's very good against guards like Tyrese Maxey, where they're fast and you don't want to give them a lane, because once they have a lane, they're gone. But those defenders aren't good against the Jalen Brunsons, Luka Doncic's of the world, where those guys are not fast, and giving them that type of positioning doesn't really do much for you, because they are just going to be tricksy and get out of it anyway. So then, instead of having, who's a good defender, Kawhi Leonard, let's say, you would want a defender like Matisse Thybulle, because Matisse Thybulle would let guys go around screens. He'd let them do that, and he, probably better than at least any wing defender I've seen, is good at stopping guys from behind. But at the same time, if the guard is fast, Ja Morant, Tyrese Maxey, that doesn't work, because they'll just blow by him, and then he's just not in the play anymore. Oh, wow, Fox just ran by. That's cool. And so I believe we're seeing something similar in terms of center defense, where Wemby, on bigger, stronger centers, can actually be a good defender, because his arm strength is, his arm length is so vast that when they throw up what they normally their bread and butter, he can contest it, he can block it, and he just throws guys off that way. And if they put too much strength in, then they will draw offensive fouls. Those big guys are better at guarding the Karl-Anthony Towns of the world, where he's sort of that in-between of being really agile, not necessarily having the most strength, not necessarily being the most aggressive. And so all they really need to do is put up a wall and put up a hand. Not saying it's not skilled, but saying it's just a different type of defense that they have to play. And we've seen that in times with, especially earlier in their careers, when he was more agile, where Joel Embiid did have Carl Anthony Towns' number for a while. But now that we've gone full circle in how centers are being developed, now we're not getting the big bruising centers anymore. We're getting the more skillful guys. We're getting the Wembys, the Chets, even to a degree, Donovan Clingan, who is closer to the bigger bruising centers, but is probably going to end up being a more Karl Anthony Towns type out of necessity of needing spacing and needing everyone to be a good passer. And so he might have some of sort of the bigger bruising habits practiced out of him. Where are they going? I lost. So when you have those all the way skillful guys who are really skinny, like Wemby and Chet, Karl Anthony Towns type guys are better defenders against them because they can put up the wall that they need, and they can contest because they have the quickness, but they don't overextend the same way a Rudy Gobert might overextend. I mentioned Joel Embiid. Anthony Davis would overextend because those guys have pride. If you told Anthony Davis to just stand there, he wouldn't do it. He would want to go out and block the guy's shot because that's their pride as good defenders. Cat doesn't have that. Different types of guys don't have that. Guys who were probably historically, this is a type of series. If he was better, obviously he's not as good, but I could see someone like Yusuf Nurkic, or who's someone who is this is the type of, not Jaren Jackson, because he is a good defender. I'm trying to think of a guy who really isn't that good of a defender, but he's tall. This is Jahlil Okafor. No, because he wasn't a shooter. But kind of in a body sense, yeah, like Jahlil Okafor would be a good defender on Wemby. Not because he's good, but because he has the body. In some ways, I don't know if he had the quickness per se, because again, Cat is pretty unique in that sense. But he doesn't. Porzingis. Porzingis would be young Porzingis would have been a good defender against Wemby because he had the quickness, he has the size. He would be bulkier due to being a little bit shorter. He would be a good defender against Wemby, and in some ways might be a better defender against Wemby than good center defenders like Rudy Gobert, like Joel Embiid, like Anthony Davis. Because most of the time, his defense, in terms of his body, he had the length, right? He could block shots. That was always sort of the talk with him, or the conversation around him was, he's tall and can block shots, but he's not a good positional defender, right? He's not that good of a rim protector in the sense of he's in the right place that dissuades guys. But because he has the length, and because he has some quickness, and because he has enough there to probably contain Wemby, he might be a better defender than those other guys. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, sorry if the audio is bad. I'm just out here on this walk, and I know I haven't posted a video in a while, so I wanted to do something real quick while I'm on this walk and can talk. Click all the buttons if you enjoyed. Yeah, I hope the Spurs win. I don't want the Knicks to win. Nothing against New York, the city. It's mostly media. I talk to other people, they sort of feel like the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA, but that's for another day. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully see you soon with a new Phillies video. I'll see you then.